It's that time of year once again, S23 Ultra leak season, as we're less than a couple of months away from the reveal officially of the S23 Ultra. But Leak Spinner, or some sort of bizarre name on Twitter, will put the picture up here, put out an image of what looks like the entire lineup for the Galaxy phones this year. And Twitter mostly focused on the S23 Ultra because people seemed rather upset that the design seems pretty similar, if not almost exactly the same, as the S22 Ultra. And to me, I wasn't that shocked. I think I did a video back in June saying that it was going to be the relatively same design. I thought that's the leaks that we had coming into this year anyway. I wasn't expecting a new design, but it seems like we've gotten, I guess spoiled is the wrong word, especially when they're charging so much for these devices. You think maybe there'll be a new design each year. But I think we've gotten used to companies coming out with a new design every single year for the flagship devices. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not necessarily a huge fan, especially when it comes to the Samsung phones. I would have loved to have seen an updated or refined version of the S10 Plus. Would have loved for them to have taken another shot with updated specs on that device. I would have loved to have seen an S21 Ultra, a refreshed version of that, to have that design get another year in the life cycle to see what they could do with that. The S20, well, they could have thrown that out. That was one that only deserved the 1 year that it got. Good riddance to that one. But the rest of them, it's nice to see an updated version, especially we get used to a design. We like a design. We don't upgrade every year, so maybe we see the old one. We'd like that, but we still want the latest and greatest when we go to update. So I don't think it's the end of the world to have the design. I would love to have seen, which we're going to get, an S22 Ultra refresh with the battery life that you'd expect to get from a flagship device with a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. Charging $1,200, you want to get the battery life from that. I like this design. I got used to it. I think it's quite nice. It's kind of an updated Note design that you could see here, kind of the boxy one. People either love it or they hate it. But if you love it, you're kind of disappointed by the battery life, and you'd love to use it a full year with the performance that you had expected from the beginning. So the fact that they're just running it back again doesn't bother me that much. I think more companies should do that. I love the fact that Google, with their Pixel line, with the Pixel 7, essentially gave that design another shot from the year previous, so they could focus on the refinements, the battery life, the software experience, the little things, and not necessarily have to put that much effort, all that R&D, all those engineers into a completely new design. So maybe Samsung can also take advantage of that extra effort that they could put in refinements to this design, and we could get that much better of a device because of it. And listen, they got another pass this year because nobody really came up and took that mantle of the Apex Predator for Android devices. I know there's a lot of phones overseas, a lot of the Xiaomi offerings that were quite cool, but here in the United States, this was still it, again, when you wanted the entire package, when you wanted performance, when you wanted that display, when you wanted the S Pen. Everything that this phone offered was top of the line, with the exception of battery life. But Pixel 7 Pro was nice, solid offering, great for the price, still didn't quite touch this in my mind when it came to flagship, just regular slab phones, non-foldable type devices. So the other thing is, I don't know where they go from here. I don't know where you go with this device, especially if you're keeping the S Pen in the device. There's only so much you could do with this design. If you think back to the Notes of years past, how much did the Note design really change? You're looking at the original Note, the 2, the 3, the 4, you want to say was a kind of the departure. The 5 got us to this kind of design, where it was the S7 kind of esque looking design. And then they went into the 8 and 9, which were kind of similar. The 10 was just an upgraded, thinned out version of the 9 that got rid of the bezels and a couple of the other features. And then this, the 20, was essentially, the Note 20 was a 10. This is essentially a refined Note 20. So how many of these changes are you really going to see in the Note line when you look back and see just how many changes we've had in the Note line over the last 10 years? And there's only so much you can do when you have to have the pen in the device. You want it flush. I mean, you're not going to have a rounded S-type device because that doesn't make sense. I think you want it flush. I like it flush only because with the screen and the display and you writing on it, I don't like those big rounded edges with the phones that I use the pen. I just don't. I hate the waterfall screens with that as well, because you lose all that screen real estate when you're going ahead and wrapping around on it. So that to me is an issue. But I definitely think it's something that they need to look at. So let's take a look at it and see what they would be thinking about in terms of design changes on where you'd go from here in an S24 and forward. You can see this is the Note 10 Plus, strikingly similar. You have the same basic outline. You have that boxy shape that was the Note signature for so long that we came to love on a lot of these devices. But you could see the S10 Plus that I was referencing that I would have loved to have seen an updated version on. I don't know if you could go back to having a camera array go across the back in straight instead of up and down. It seems like as these camera systems have gotten more and more complicated and they've added those periscope zooms and all the rest of it, all of the cameras for all the manufacturers, with the exception of the Sony devices, have migrated towards the top here. Now, a lot of the Vivo ones take up the entire back, so I don't know if that counts as more towards this way when you take up the entire top of the display, but maybe it does. So it'd be interesting to see if they could kind of migrate this guy back towards the center here and give us a design like this, even with the periscope zooms and taking up that much space internally. The one good thing about that might be is that if you get the cameras out of this spot of the device, you can actually move the S Pen back to what I think is the proper side of the phone, the left side, or the right side of the phone rather, where you could have it and not have it where it's directly that has to be opposite the camera because there's no space inside. This seems like it's meant for lefties. I never quite got used to that, having to go over here. But here on the S10, you could go ahead, or the Note 10 rather, you go ahead, it's on the right side. If you're a righty, you could go ahead and use the pen without any issue. Would have loved to have seen one of these updated versions, so I don't mind the fact that they're going with this. You want to make it a little thinner, you want to make it a little lighter. We've complained for years, or I said, that we didn't need to keep making them that light and that thin. I think this, to me, the S10 design was the peak of that. Really nice. It was thin, it was powerful, but it still felt premium, it still felt solid, and now we've gone back to something with the S21 Ultra and the S22 Ultra that were pure bricks. When you think about the massive changes that Samsung's had over the years, it always came with the S-series devices. The S9, S8, in a big departure from the S7. Then you had the other ones going way back, the S3. Then you had this one with the S10 Plus. Then you had when came the S21 Ultra that we had. Those were the big departures, where the Notes, as we were talking about, stayed relatively the same over the years. So it will be interesting to see. They gave themselves a pass. They punted. They allowed themselves one more year with this design, which I personally am fine with because I happen to like this design. But if you don't like this design, if you were looking for something different, what were some things that you think you change about this, knowing that the S Pen still had to be in the picture, that they still wanted the pen inside the device? I think that limits how many actual design changes you could make, and that might be the reason why, at least for this year, they've kind of broken from that pattern of having a completely new design on the Galaxy devices for the upcoming year. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.